I signed up for DoorDash just to see if it was as good as they advertised. Initially, it took me a whole month to finally get myself to take on my first delivery. But from then on, I did a couple of deliveries every day, and the result was really good. A couple of months after that, I quit my grocery job and started dashing every day after school and even on most weekends. One night, I was working extra late because it was a holiday weekend. I was driving from 8 p.m. until 2 a.m., pretty much just doing back and forth from the 24/7 McDonald's. A little past 2, I picked up another McDonald's order and went en route to the customer. It was said to be delivered at some sort of warehouse, and in the notes, it said to go in through the side doors and drop it off at the front desk. When I got there, I pulled into this huge parking lot. It was mostly empty. Only a few semi-trucks were parked there. The building was definitely an old warehouse. Just a large rectangle with a few windows and a single door at the front. I checked one more time to make sure I had it right to deliver through the side door. I checked one more time to make sure I had it right to deliver through the side door, then pulled around to the side and parked. The side door was one of those really heavy metal doors with a small glass window. I looked through that tiny window and didn't see anything but a small and dark entrance room. The glare from my car's headlights made the window reflection and hard to see through. I swung the door open and was immediately taken aback. It was just as dark as it seemed through the window, and only had a tiny wall light in the corner that was more of a dim safety light. There was no front desk, so I walked around the corner and stood at the end of the long, until corridor. I knew that most places that have night shift workers don't keep on unnecessary lights, but this seems excessive. I couldn't even see the end of the hallway. If I were to walk down there, I would be walking into complete darkness. I took my phone out and checked again to see if I'd gone to the wrong place or through the wrong door. Everything seems right, but there wasn't any way I was going to walk through that hallway. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how quiet the whole building was. No machinery moving, no people talking, not a sound at all. I decided to call the customer. I clicked on their name and had to dial the number manually. Just a moment later, I heard the phone ring echo from the other end of the hallway. After another few seconds, it rang again, but it was closer and louder this time. I stared into the empty corridor and could barely make out the faint glow of someone's phone. "Hey, I got an order here from DoorDash. I'm gonna leave it right here for you," I said, setting the bag down in front of me. The figure of a large man started to come out of the dark corridor, but he didn't say anything. I waited another second, but as he got closer, it just really seemed unnerving the way he was walking so fast and not speaking. I had this feeling like someone was going to jump out behind me or something, and overall, I was really freaked out. I turned around and walked quickly out of the door and back to my car. A few moments later, I saw some movement from behind the small glass window on the door just before I pulled away. That whole thing gave me chills and made me to call it a night and go straight home. In the end, I choose to believe it was just a weird situation all around, but nothing really happened, so I blew it off. A couple of days went by, And on Monday evening, while I was driving again, I got a strange call. It was from the police department. But basically, they questioned me about why I was at that specific warehouse at 2:30 a.m. on Saturday morning. Apparently, they had security footage of my car pulling up. After explaining I was just a DoorDash driver and proving it with the delivery receipt, they told me what was going on. They said that the workers came back from their holiday weekend where the warehouse was not in the operation and found the DoorDash delivery sitting in the middle of the hallway. Whoever was there had to broken in and ordered the fake account, which is all scary in its own right. But the creepiest part is, they didn't even take the bag of food. It's pretty obvious that they were looking for something else. I don't know what they wanted from me, but I can only assume that if I had stayed and waited for the man, something terrible would have happened. When this happened, I was 23 and worked full-time at a pizza shop in my local area. I'm not sure if things were going on before this, but as far as I know, everything started and ended on this one night. My best friend Tim and I worked the night shifts at this pizza place. It was a really small shop, having just 3 or 4 tables inside because we specialized in delivery and takeout. Both Tim and I got our jobs there while we were in college and just never left. Being in a quiet rural town, the job wasn't too much work. We never had busy days really, just a steady flow of orders sometimes. On this particular night, there was a light storm outside, and as a result, business was slow. There were a few orders here, but overall, we didn't have much to do. By 10 p.m., Tim suggested we start cleaning up the place. And maybe even clock out 15 minutes early. As I was cleaning, the phone at the front desk rang. I picked it up after a few rings. "How can we help you today?" I waited for another 5 seconds before putting down the phone and shaking my head. Just some prank call, I thought. I went back to scrubbing the tables, but I noticed a glare coming from the window at the front of the store. There was a car parked a few spots back. I couldn't see too well through the window in the rain, but there was definitely a light on in the car, like a cell phone or something. The pizza shop was on an individual lot, and there were no other cars, so that was the only reason I noticed it. A month later, the phone rang again. Tim, being closer, picked it up this time. I could hear someone's muffled voice coming from the phone, and after a short talk, Tim hung up. At the same time, the light in the car turned off, and it drove away. I told him what I saw and how it was a little weird, but he was shocked and said it was some old man who was ordering a pizza for delivery. I looked back at the now empty parking lot. It didn't make much sense for someone to order a pizza for a delivery from right outside the shop. So I figured Tim was right, and it was nothing. He started making the pizza while I continued cleaning. 10 minutes later, Tim boxed it up and handed it off to me to deliver. I ran through the rain to my car, then pulled up the address on my phone. 11 minutes away. Not too bad. I pulled out and started making my way there. The roads were dead. Nobody out at all. nobody out at all. Google Maps took me a neighborhood full of large homes, then had me turn down a long driveway that led to a cul-de-sac where there were 3 more driveways, each leading to a different house. I went down the one Maps told me to. I went down to the one Maps told me to, and pulled up next to the home. It was one of those large, expensive houses, but pretty old looking, and not very modern at all. I parked the car, double-checked the address with the house number, then picked up the pizza and ran up to the front door. Pizza delivery. I took a step back and looked at the front of the house. All of the lights were off. I dialed Tim's cell and had him call the guy who ordered. My phone buzzed a moment later, and Tim told me that his call went straight to the voicemail. I shook my head in frustration and ran through the rain to my car and got in. I tossed the pizza on the passenger seat and started backing out. This wasn't out of the ordinary, getting fake orders or dead delivers, but it still annoyed me every time. When I got back, Tim was cleaning and said there were no more orders, so we were good to finish up and head out. I tossed the pizza in the trash and started helping him. Both of us were in the back cleaning the ovens and wiping the prep counters when a sudden bang came from the front of the building. We looked at each other, then ran to the front door. At first, we didn't see anything, but then Tim spotted a small crack on the door. I walked over and opened it, and right outside was a heavy rock, big enough to throw and do some damage with it. I looked around, seeing the parking lot was completely empty and nobody was nearby. Both of us were really confused and kind of freaked out. We talked about maybe calling the cops, but neither of us wanted to deal with that right now. To put things in perspective, it was 10 minutes before we were off, and if we called them, we'd be here for another hour at least. The crack on the door wasn't too big, not really that noticeable. So we chose to wait and just tell our manager the next day instead. We quickly finished up the cleaning and left through the back door where our cars were parked. On the drive home, I rethought all the strange things that happened, and it made me uneasy. I pulled into my driveway and walked inside. It was late, so I knew I had to get in bed soon, but I wanted something to snack on first. I went back to the kitchen to see what I had, but before I even opened the pantry, I heard the car splash through the puddles on the street outside my house. From the sound of it, I could tell it was parking. I walked over to my window, seeing a car parked right in front of my driveway. It only took me a second to realize it was the same car I'd seen outside the pizza shop. A cold rush went through me, and I stayed in the window to see what they were doing. The car was still on, but I couldn't see through the window. After a minute of no movement, I took out my phone and called Tim, telling him that I think one of the customers followed me home and was parked right outside my house. "Are you serious? You need to call the cops. Something's not right," he said, urging me to hang up and call the police immediately. I don't know why I was so nervous to call the cops, but hearing Tim say it made me feel better about it. I moved away from the window and dialed 911. Said that they would have someone on their way and that I should stay hidden and wait. I heard the car door open and close, so I quickly said okay and hung up. Looking back at his window, a man was walking up my driveway. He was wearing dark clothes and was wearing dark clothes, body and a hood covering his face. As he approached the house, I closed the curtains by the window and waited. Footsteps came to the front door. Then they continued across the front of the house until they reached the footsteps. Silence made the sound of the rain increasingly louder. I felt like I was standing there quietly for minutes before I stepped forward and moved the curtain edge to the side, just enough to peek through. The man's cold eyes stared back at me. I let go of the curtain, and the man's back turned to me. I stood a few feet away. There was no more bang, no footsteps, nothing. Although I'll never messed my head. Hoping that by doing this, someone would help me. What happened? Hoping that by sharing this, someone may help me understand what happened or why the man did what he did. It sounds odd, but even now, when it's scarcely quiet on rainy days, there's an eerie feeling that rushes through me, bringing me back to that night.